Welcome back to J&M Sports Talk. I'm Mark. This is Jonathan. Jonathan, you with us?
Are we on? Oh, I was doing my mental reps. We got to do those mental reps for Coach Jones. Man, we had that tough loss against Missouri this last week. They hung 50 on Tennessee. We got to do better. We got to get more mental reps up. What's so funny?
You didn't catch the news, did you?
No, what news?
Butch Jones got the can.
Oh,
He's out.
but he's lasted so long. I would have thought he'd been. Oh,
He's done.
darn.
All right, so we got some news and notes for you to start off the show. First being Butch Jones was fired. Jonathan, we expected this much sooner in the season.
Oh yeah, it was a done deal. I mean, it's been so long that I kind of forgot he's still hanging around almost. To the point where it was due. I wonder if probably the fact Florida's already moved on from McElwain, that probably had a huge point into it. I would think with them looking for their next coach, they're probably looking for someone similar of a coaching style, offensive minded. So I wonder if they felt they were behind the eight ball of Florida, which is the last place they want to be in this situation.
Right. One of the new things in college football this year also is that there's an early signing period before signing day. I think it's in December.
It's something weird.
So you're going to see a lot more of this early coaches firing. A lot of schools, they wait until after the season to fire their coach and find a replacement. But this year, you really want to have your coach set in place so that you get a jump on early signing day. And we've already seen, even after Butch Jones being fired, some decommitments on the Tennessee side. So it'll be interesting. Like you said, Florida and Tennessee are both probably looking for a similar type coach.
Yeah, we're joking about not knowing about the hiring, of course. Just making fun of something. He made earlier a comment about players taking mental reps in practice instead of just practicing. So, which is probably what led to him getting fired too. They need to be practicing on the field and not just watching mentally. But one of the things though is there was an article I read that he's already anti-recruiting for Tennessee. Right, one of the first things he did was he called one of their top recruits and told him to find another school soon. So you got to think there's some bitterness for him leaving too.
Right, and he was given the opportunity to finish the season out and coach the remaining 2 games, and he declined. So that kind of shows you where he was at when he got fired. Just totally burnt out, ready to move on. In other news, Florida, we mentioned them earlier. So they're looking at a new coach, Jonathan. Who are they taking a look at?
News came out that I predicted earlier in the year, they're vetting Chip Kelly, which they say vetting, which one of the rules in the SEC is that anytime a school does make a hire, that Gary Sankey, the SEC commissioner, has to approve that hire and approve that person okay, which is pretty much just a formality, but that's why they have to go through that process. So I would think the fact that they're openly talking about it, you got to think that they've already been having conversations with them, and it might be close to being done. Who knows? But
yeah,
interesting. It would definitely be a good fit for them.
Yeah, good fit. We were talking earlier before the show about the best fit for a new Florida coach. They've gone the defensive side. I really feel like Florida, they have this hotbed of recruiting where they're going to get the athletes for the defensive side of the ball, no matter what. Yeah. And so if you look at the past history of Florida and when they had the most success, it was Steve Spurrier, an offensive-minded coach. Urban Meyer, very good offensive-minded coach. So I think that's probably the direction that they need to go. And it would be interesting to see Chip Kelly and his offense in the SEC.
Yeah, I don't think either one of those coaches, their defense is slouched very much. I mean, focusing on the offense did seem to hurt some of them Florida Gator defenses at all.
Right, so, they still had good defensives. Yep. So, yeah, we'll see how that all turns out. We've got an action-packed show for you guys today, but just a couple of news and notes to start us out. But there were some really good games from last week, so we're going to recap some of those games. We're going to give our players of the week. Compared to last week's games, there's kind of a letdown for this week's games.
More room for more drama, though. They say it's never a bad week college football, just more room for drama.
Right. So we do have 10 games that we're going to pick for you for this week. So let's get to it. Let's start with recapping our first game, Jonathan.
Yeah.
FSU traveling to Clemson. Clemson ended up winning that one by a wide margin, but what did you think from that game?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Florida State, they're just continuing to try to trying to get better each week. They had a good showing against Clemson. That was on the road. I thought they played well. They had a chance at one point, tied at 14, to actually take the lead, and that's when just things like they seem to always do. There's always a play that just things fall apart and they end up losing. It was a tough loss for them, I know, because they were playing a great Clemson team so well. But I mean, you can still see that this team just can't quite figure it out consistently. But good for them. This last week, they actually added that Louisiana Monroe game back to their schedule, feeling like they're playing a little better ball. They might have a chance to still make a bowl game, and they should have a chance. And all of them, you would think they play. They go to Gainesville's probably the toughest one.
Yeah, I get the feeling that they looked down at their schedule. They saw a 3-6 Florida team. They're 3-6, and they thought, you know what, we could beat them.
Yeah.
And so they called Louisiana Monroe, which was previously canceled, and they rescheduled that one. So FSU, they hold a really good shot at getting to a bowl game.
Yeah, which would be huge for them at this point. I would say that would be a phenomenal job by Jimbo Fisher to get them bowl eligible, considering the issues that they've had to deal with. There's a lot of injuries. I mean, you can't plan for those. So for them to be rebuilding and to make a bowl game, that would be huge for. I mean, that's just more hands-on time with him and Blackman, and more opportunity for them to look at tape. There's a lot more they can do with the players than they can with the players on their own. So that's always a positive to make a bowl game, no matter how season goes for a team.
Yeah, it should be mentioned though, FSU, their struggles in particular in this game with Clemson. The ACC is one of the best conferences in Jonathan and I's opinion. So
yeah, this year,
for them to have a down year, 3-6, they faced a really good opponent in Alabama on the first game. I don't think it's indicative of where the ACC is at and the young team that FSU has. And so in this particular game, Clemson running the ball down FSU's throat, especially later in the game.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's something we haven't really seen in an FSU team, but I think there is hope in the future. And this is very much a rebuilding year.
And even some of their losses, they've had some really good close losses. So it's not like, I mean, it's you can tell that it's hard. It takes the heart out of the team in some aspects, but at the same time, you look back and considering what they're going through, those are some good showings against some good teams. I mean, even we'll talk later. Wake Forest, not a bad team, but they went on the road, and that's another thing too. Their schedule was not doing them any favors. A lot of their tougher games were on the road.
Yeah.
The ones that they could have won.
Which is tough for a younger team.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to another game. Iowa State and Oklahoma State. Jonathan, how did that one end up finishing?
Yeah, the Oklahoma State, it's almost like I feel like their defense may have just are still worried about the Oklahoma loss. They just didn't show up to play, and Iowa took advantage of that. I'd say, at one point through the end of the game, you mentioned you thought something interesting about the end of the overtime.
Yeah, I wanted to mention to our fans that didn't catch the game. Late in the game, Iowa State was driving. They throw a pass in the end zone, and it was ruled a simultaneous catch. And for our viewers that don't know what that means, that is where both the offense and the defense catch the ball, the defensive back and the wide receiver at the same time. So the tie normally goes to the offense. Well, there was an overturn of the call, and the officials ended up deciding that the Oklahoma State player had caught the ball, and so they ruled it an interception in the end zone instead of a game-tying touchdown for Iowa State. And so it didn't end up going into overtime. Oklahoma State ends up winning the game. This is huge for Oklahoma State.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Who is still alive in the Big 12 to make the Big 12 championship.
They're sitting there right at that. They're the next team up to go to the Big 12. Right now, it looks like it's going to be Oklahoma TCU again, which we'll talk about in a minute. It was a pretty interesting game, to say the least, this weekend as well. But they need TCU to trip up against either Texas Tech this week or Baylor. So Baylor game's at home for TCU. The Texas Tech's on the road. So doesn't look very likely. But worst case, Oklahoma State takes care of business. They could be looking at a New Year's Six bowl, which wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, that would be a good finish to their season, especially how good the Big 12 has been.
Yeah, and that's considering the fact that the Big 12 might have 3 teams in the New Year's Six bowls. So that would be a great accomplishment for the Big 12, especially when there's some talks the way the season's kind of gone. The Big 12 championship could hurt the conference. There talks with all the tiebreakers and everything. The way it's looking, seems like a lot of the conferences are going to have multiple all champions. It could end up hurting them. We'll just have to see how the last 2 weeks finish out. But
welcome back, Big 12, to
yeah,
conference championship play, where it can ruin your championship hopes.
Yeah, they're it's funny. When 2 years ago they were being sought out, but you didn't have one, you're completely out. Now that they have one, oh, it might cost you. So you can't win or lose.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. All right, let's talk about this. Was kind of a surprising finish. Michigan State and Ohio State. Jonathan, this one we were kind of thinking it might be close, but not so much.
Big Ten. We never know what we're getting with any of these teams. Michigan State just got outplayed in every phase. Give credit to Ohio State.
Yep.
JT Barrett showed up this week. That's not always a given, even though he didn't make a few turnovers still, but he did enough for them to win. That was really the big part of it, was Ohio State was able to make a lot of plays this week that they didn't at Iowa.
Yeah, they were at home. They played the home crowd. Ohio State really got the rushing game going against Michigan State, and that just helped JT Barrett that much more. So
for sure. Good
win for Ohio State, and it looks like the Big Ten championship actually mattered to them this week.
Yeah, they still have a chance. So they figured they'd go get it.
Yeah, so good for them for trying.
Yeah. I'll try this week.
Yeah. Let's talk about an SEC matchup, Alabama and Mississippi State. This one was a really good game, really close throughout the whole thing. Looked like Mississippi State was going to get the upset, but Jonathan, Alabama ended up winning.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a tale of two teams in different positions playing different. This was definitely one where first you got to say that Alabama defense is just torn with injuries.
Yep.
There's multiple ways you can look at it. They're saying that some of the guys that are playing now that are starting for them at linebacker had no business playing this year, true freshmen. Again, there's some that are going to say, oh, well, they've had all these great recruiting classes for so long. They're all blue chips, so they should be able to plug and play, right? So it was kind of nice to see them being vulnerable for once, especially because that position's been decimated. But then also you got to give credit to Jalen Hurts. You know, he really stepped up for them, and you know he's not the passer we're used to expecting from Alabama team, but he's still got that leadership aspect that you expect from Alabama quarterback. In the last few years, the way they've been playing. So, granted, he does things a different way than you normally expect to see, but when the game matters and it's close, he's able to make those plays. So you got to give him credit for that. But you also, you want to talk about the Mississippi State side of it, though. Mississippi State played a great game as well.
I'll also address the Jalen Hurts thing because I've been an open critic of him the last year and a half, 2 years of him playing. But, you know, he made the plays when he needed to make the plays. That last touchdown, a lot of credit has to go to him and managing the offense and doing just what Alabama needed to get the score. Yep. But Mississippi State, let's talk a little bit about them. So why were they able to keep this game close? They had a different strategy in beating Alabama. And that strategy was, let's hold the ball as much as we can. Let's maximize the play clock. Let's use all 40 seconds before we snap it and try to slow the game down so that we minimize Alabama's offensive possessions. Really good strategy. Yeah. A lot of teams haven't really tried that with them. And so what we saw from that was Mississippi State. You know, they had the ball for almost 40 minutes. It's only a 60-minute game.
Yeah.
So 2/3 of the game were Mississippi State's, and just a third was Alabama's. But also, Mississippi State, if you're going to play that way, you better convert third downs. You better stay on the field. Right. So Mississippi State, they were 8 of 15 on third downs.
That's impressive, especially against Alabama.
Better than 50%.
No matter what defense they were bringing in, but
it doesn't matter. You talked about all the talent that Alabama had. So 8 of 15, that's a really good number. Alabama was just 3 for 10 on third down. So they didn't stay on the field on third. So really impressed with Mississippi State. They could have really shaken up the SEC chances of getting to the college football playoff with a victory, but Alabama holds on and they get it, and their playoff hopes are intact still.
Yeah. So one thing, I was watching the game too, and I was thinking the same thing. It's really refreshing to see a team take a different approach, and that I would say it'd be a success, even though it wasn't. They didn't get the final outcome they wanted. They were in there, just made one more play at the end of the game, kind of like Clemson championship, their last loss. It's just the other team made one more play. Alabama wasn't necessarily beaten as much as. But it was refreshing because in the past, all we've seen our teams do one of two routes. Either they try to go LSU route, which we've seen how that's turned out. LSU's gotten a field goal to beat Bama. The 1-2 times they beat them, they get out, which where they pretty much just try to out Bama. They try to play the same type schemes and run the same type plays and try to beat Bama, doing things Bama does well. Or you look at a team like Auburn that does everything Bama doesn't do. The up tempo, the spread it out, and then still run off the read option, all that kind of stuff that Bama's starting to do a little bit more now because of having Hurts at quarterback.
They are.
They're having to adjust. But in years past, especially during this dynasty, it's been either those two ways is how you have a small chance of beating Bama if you're not one of those teams, LSU or Auburn, that are always trying to build to beat them every year. So it was nice to see one of the other teams stepping up, which, funny story though about Mississippi State that I saw, just random stat was, the last coach to actually beat Alabama, Mississippi State is Sylvester Croom.
Sly Croom.
So all the way back, and that was Saban's first year in Alabama. So it's just crazy how long it's been since Mississippi State's won, and that was probably their best showing. So good effort by them. They proved that they're a top 20 team though for sure in that game.
Yeah, they got that solid moral victory, I would say.
Whatever that's worth. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to another big game, TCU Oklahoma game. Jonathan, this one was pretty one-sided in the first half, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I was disappointed in this one. I really like this TCU team, and the defense just wasn't ready for Baker Mayfield in the first half. They just jumped up on him so quick that I had to stop watching it. No, I was so disappointed for TCU. They've been playing such great ball. I really thought this defense was going to be an opportunity for them to really shine, and they really didn't, especially that first half.
Yeah, the disappointing thing for TCU was they weren't prepared in the first half to stop Oklahoma, because Oklahoma threw up 38 in the first half. And how many points did Oklahoma have in the second half?
I don't think they scored.
They were held. They were shut out.
Yeah.
That's what you look for in a TCU defense. So had they put it all together in the first half, maybe they go into Norman and get that victory.
Yep.
But didn't happen. Credit Baker Mayfield. One of my players of the week, Rodney Anderson, the Oklahoma running back. We'll talk more about him, but he had an awesome game.
Yeah.
So credit Oklahoma. Potentially going to see this rematch.
Yeah, this is the one this is what should happen. TCU Oklahoma, unless some hiccup comes along, which is there's still 2 weeks left.
Yeah, it could happen.
But luckily for both these teams, most of the ones they have the tiebreakers against a lot of guys, so that'll help toward the top. But yeah, so all likelihood it should be, but you never know. There's still 2 games for both teams, so we'll find out. But yeah, maybe that'd be something to look at for the rematch. TCU is able to take that game plan early
and utilize it. Yeah, absolutely. And it would be a neutral site game.
Yep.
Instead of a true road test.
It caused more headache for the committee.
Yeah, they'll have to decipher that. Let's talk about the marquee game from the week. Notre Dame and Miami. So Miami just comes out and crushes Notre Dame from start to finish.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I thought Notre Dame, they're a senior team. They've got a lot of upperclassmen, and they've been doing it by running the ball, being very disciplined, and that didn't matter against this young, scrappy Miami team that, I thought last week, one of the things that the biggest knock to Miami wasn't the fact they were winning. They were winning games. It was just how they were winning games. Last week they finally got a decent, convincing win. They controlled the game. And what did they do with that? They took it this week, and they dominated a top 5 team. So you got to say they're the best team in the ACC now. No knock to Clemson, but I have them as the number 1 team in the ACC now.
Well, still undefeated.
Yeah.
This was a great non-conference win for them.
Yep.
And Miami, potentially their 2 best weeks of football have been in consecutive weeks. They're playing their best ball at the end of the season.
Which is what you want to do.
Which is where
champions do.
Yeah, in the eyes of the playoff committee, they're going to view them higher.
Right.
So great win for Miami.
Yep.
And they still have a lot to play for. They lock up the ACC championship bid, so it'll be Clemson and Miami in a few weeks. So that
first championship we locked down.
But it'll be. I think it's just building anticipation for that matchup.
For sure.
With Clemson playing well and Miami playing well. All right, probably one of the bigger surprises of the week was the Georgia-Auburn game.
Yeah.
That was one of the bigger games, probably the biggest game in the SEC so far this year. And Jonathan, Auburn just comes out and takes it to Georgia.
Well, if there's one thing that was not lied, fans did see the number one team in the country that night. They just weren't expecting which color they would be wearing. That's one thing I would say. Auburn, they might have played the best game of any team in the country this year, from offensive side to defensive side. There's still plenty of things Auburn can work on, but especially the defense, they stopped one of the best rushing attacks in the country, completely shut them down, and that was the big part of the game. Georgia couldn't move the ball. It's interesting. Like all week, one of the things that they were talking about was literally Auburn's coaches. If you listen to the press conferences and things that they were saying before the game, they literally told Georgia what Auburn was going to do. They said they were going to stop the run and dominate the third down. They didn't say they were going to stop them on third down and do well. They said they were going to dominate third and long. That's a big statement, and they backed it up this week. It was a home game for Auburn, so they got to feed off that as well. But you got to be impressed with the defensive effort here by Auburn here. They showed that they're definitely the better team.
Georgia, going into the game, was averaging 280 rushing yards per game, and they definitely have one of the best backfields in the country.
Right.
So for Auburn to completely shut them down, running, what was it, less than 50 yards?
They had 46 yards rushing.
46 yards rushing. That was a huge part of the game, forcing Jake Fromm to throw it, which he didn't have a bad game.
Yeah, I would say I was trying before the game. I was debating on giving him freshman just because of the fact he played a good game when he had opportunity to. The line just couldn't protect him. There were several times by the time unfortunately for him, a lot of Georgia's passes are off play action or some movement, some rollout or something. So by the time he gets in position to pass, he'd have a Jake Holland or another or Nick Coe or one of the guys were in his grill, or he'd be being run down by him, and he was more worried about not getting tackled than he was looking downfield.
Yeah, and for Auburn, I mean, this is another SEC game where they hang 40 on the opponent. I can't really remember an Auburn team like this that has just gone through their SEC schedule. Think about it. The only SEC team that Auburn didn't hang 40 on, who was it?
LSU.
And in the first half, they were cooking on all cylinders to put 40 on them. So this is a really good Auburn team. That's the takeaway. But as Kirby Smart, you mentioned this before the show. This isn't as bad. It's never as bad as you think it is. It's never as good as you think it is.
Right.
It's probably somewhere in the middle. So when we're looking at Georgia, they're still a good team, and they still have a lot to play for. They still have the playoff hopes in front of them.
Yep. They went out. They're in. They're going to be SEC champ with one loss.
Yeah.
And the way it's looking, a one-loss conference champion is probably looking pretty good considering all the conferences with multiple losses.
And they're either going to be a number one Alabama team, or they're going to beat every team on their schedule with a win against Auburn in a rematch in the SEC championship.
And if they get to play Auburn again, then more likely I would assume Auburn beating two number ones would be a top 5 team, if not top 4 team. So they would have a top 4 team on their resume as well.
Right. So Georgia still has a lot to play for. So their ability to rebound will dictate, what kind of season they're going to finish with.
And then rebounding may dictate the SEC as well.
It will.
That was one thing, though. Auburn definitely got under their skin this game, though, too. It seemed like they're making a lot of the plays that got this out of hand being a blowout was as much mental mistakes by Georgia. And a lot of special teams. Special teams had 2 penalties where a guy jumped over the shield, which is a 15-yarder automatic first down for Auburn. And they would have had Auburn inside the 20 on a punt early in the game too. That they had three guys swarming them, and one of them was almost on top of them and made the catch. He didn't give them room to catch. They put the ball out to the 30, so they were out of any trouble there. And then and of course the big one was the muff punt where the guy just trying to make a play. Some of these rivalry games you got to consider if a team's struggling. Sometimes these guys they don't think and they try to do a little extra, and that's just all that was. He missed time running up to make the catch on the run, and they just hit him in the knee. He just ended up being Auburn's ball inside the 30, and that was one of the scores that broke the game open. So there's a lot of little mistakes they could have corrected that they could have been. It could have been a lot closer this game. So
right, yep. All right, let's talk about our players of the week. So who do you have for your freshman of the week?
My freshman, I'm gonna go with Trajan Bundy. He's the corner for Miami. He had a 65-yard interception that he returned for a touchdown against Notre Dame. One of the many turnovers that they had in that game. He got the turnover chain for that one.
Yeah. Zeb Nolan, he was my freshman of the week, Iowa State quarterback. Kyle Kemp, he was the quarterback, and he got hurt. He got banged up in West Virginia game a couple weeks ago, but he tried to give it a go. He played the majority of the first half, but Zeb, he came into the game, led the team down for a score. He did a good job. He had almost 300 passing yards.
Impressive.
He did have an interception, but for a freshman playing a big-time team
for sure.
where they have a really good offense that you got to keep pace with, I don't think they would have had a chance to be in that game without Zeb.
You don't expect a freshman to come in like that late in the year even and throw 300 yards. So great for him.
So Iowa State's future looks pretty good if he's the quarterback.
If I'm correct, doesn't that make their third string quarterback? What if he started the year? We joked about the second string doing well for him.
Yeah.
What if the third string would have got an opportunity?
They're
looking like was it early in the year Maryland? Going 30.
I think they're down to their fifth string walk on now.
Okay.
Quarterback. Who did you like out of your offensive player?
This one I'm gonna stick with Auburn. You carry on Johnson. Yeah, he had 32 carries for 167 yards. They also had 2 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. He had a big 50-yard dump screen pass to go, and that was kind of the breaker. But Georgia's defense struggled on the offense. The defense hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher in 12 games. And Georgia's had good defenses for years, so it's not like something they're reinventing the wheel even with the young offense. They've consistently had a good defense, so that was awesome for him. And we start talking about him Heisman talks. He again has another great game. Had another touchdown. He's one of the touchdown leaders in the country. I'm surprised there's not more talk of him, but I guess he has another big game against Alabama. That'll get people really talking.
Yeah. Yeah, for my offensive player of the week, I also had a running back. I went with the Oklahoma running back. Mentioned him earlier, Rodney Anderson, sophomore. He had a really good first half. He had over 300 yards of offense and 4 touchdowns. Pretty balanced, too. 2 receiving touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns against a really good TCU defense. I was really impressed with that. And very much a factor in them blowing him out in the first half. So good job for him and the Oklahoma running back. Who did you have for your defensive player of the week?
I was trying really hard to give it to a player, but as well as Auburn's defense played, holding Georgia's offensive rushing to only 46 yards is a huge accomplishment considering Michelle and Chubb especially were averaging 89 yards apiece average a game. So in fact, they're close to 100-yard rusher. You expect one of them to hit 100 every game. They held both of them combined of less than 50. I thought that was excellent. You look at the stats. Even if I tried to give a leader, it would almost be just giving it to a guy like Jay Collins because he is the leader of that defense. But you go down the board, everyone was like 5 tackles, 4 tackles, 5, 4. And then some of the secondary were getting multiple batted down passes, stuff like that. So it was really hard to pick a player to represent that team. So I'm going to give it to the team.
That's fair. It's an all-around effort there.
It was.
I went with Jaquan Johnson, the junior Miami defensive back. You mentioned how they shut down Notre Dame. He was a huge factor in that. He had 8 total tackles, a tackle for loss, but Really impressed with Miami's defense,
Mm.
and I think that's going to play a huge factor in them if they're going to
Oh yeah.
get to the playoff.
Yeah, they jump up. They do the whole turnover chain thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool the fact that their defensive coordinator made this year. Part of that is that his goal is 25 turnovers. So they're the Hurricanes. I thought it was pretty cool. They now move up to Category 4 defense.
Yeah.
That every 5 turnovers they get to move up a category. Like the Hurricanes, they go up a category. So they're pushing the knock on the door. They could be going into Clemson not only as the Hurricanes, but a Category 5 Hurricane Clemson might be dealing with. Which might be a very difficult test for Kelly Bryant being a young quarterback. They're looking more and more like the best team in the ACC.
Yeah, really looking forward to that ACC championship now, with them possibly being undefeated.
I think I picked that matchup too.
Kudos. We might have to run back to grab that tape, see if we really did.
I did. I was like Miami or Georgia Tech, but I'm going Miami because I don't trust Georgia Tech's offense to not throw a game.
Okay, well, we just have to trust them, or go back and watch our
go back and watch our stuff. That's even better.
shows, earlier in the year.
Yeah.
All right, so really don't have too many games, good games to pick. Kind of a letdown from last week, but still, nonetheless, we got 10 games for you. We do have a marquee matchup in the Big Ten to talk about too. But Jonathan, let's just get to it.
Yeah.
So our first game that we're going to pick is a Big 12 matchup: Texas and West Virginia. That should be a decent game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Texas is a team that new coach still. They're getting better every week, and they're figuring out who they are more. They've got a very good defense that we found out early on in the year, but that offense has been hit or miss. They've been going back and forth on quarterback a little bit, some by injury, some by just not getting what they're wanting out of their offense. So, with that being said, they've been playing good ball, getting better. But I like West Virginia because of the home team mainly, and their defense is a lot better at home.
Yeah, last time I checked, Will Greer is actually leading the country, West Virginia quarterback, in passing touchdowns.
Wow.
So he's had a really good season, first year at West Virginia. I'm going West Virginia at home as well. All right, another game, SMU and Memphis. Jonathan, who do you have winning this game?
Yeah, I said Chad Morris is actually the offense coordinator there. He's had some experience in
Former
big games.
Clemson guy.
Yep, he's been doing well. The SMU, their offense is moving well. I like them to give Memphis a game. But I say Memphis is one of the few teams with only one loss this year. So with that being said, them being at home, I'm gonna take Memphis, but in a close one than people expect.
Yeah, Memphis, Riley Ferguson, we were really impressed with him. We think he's better than Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, for
senior
sure.
quarterback. So good job for him. I think Memphis wins this game. They're at home. Potentially getting into the New Year's Six bowls for the highest ranked non-power 5 team. So they're kind of hovering in that top.
Yeah, because UCF they're the leader, but they still have to go to South. They play at South Florida, so that'll be interesting to Scott Frost in that. So they're sitting in a good spot to where people look at maybe that UCLA win is what gives them the nod by the playoff committee. So it'll be interesting.
Interesting to see how that all shakes out.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about TCU and Texas Tech. A couple of Texas schools. Jonathan, TCU wins this one easily?
I would say they should win this one. Texas Tech is a really good team, especially being at home. This one will be a lot closer than I think people expect.
Yeah.
But I still like TCU and their defense to win out. Like I said, they made adjustments second half last week against Oklahoma. They're still still the best defense in the Big 12.
So. For sure. I like TCU to win this game and get to the Big 12 championship game. All right, Fresno State and Wyoming. Should be noted, Josh Allen, the highly touted quarterback out of Wyoming, had an AC sprain in his throwing shoulder. So does that affect your decision in this game at all, Jonathan?
That definitely does. With that being said, Fresno State's been playing good ball the second half of the season. They've been playing a lot better. They didn't start off very good, but they've got things figured out. I'm going to go with Fresno State in this one.
Yeah, it is at Wyoming.
Yeah.
So, tendency is to give the home team, a little bit more credit there. But Fresno State, they beat Boise State earlier in the year. They've had some decent wins. Just not knowing the health of Josh Allen, I'm going to go Fresno State as well. All right, let's talk about Kentucky and Georgia. Jonathan, we were discussing this before the show, but Georgia, do they rebound in this one?
I want to say yes, but I'm going to go with Kentucky in the upset here. Kentucky's playing good ball. You called them by having a good year this year earlier.
Yeah.
I really like, if they don't have two bonehead plays against Florida, they could be sitting with only 2 losses in conference and having a chance with Georgia if they were to beat Georgia to get in the SEC championship. How crazy would that have been? If they didn't have those 2 bonehead plays against Florida, Florida would be in more trouble. But with that being said, part of my problem with Georgia right now was, can they respond from the fact that so many mental errors that made it was almost like Auburn just got under their skin and took them out of their element. And sometimes losses like that, teams don't shake. I hope they do, because that's only if they were to lose this game, that's going to make trouble for the SEC getting in the playoffs. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Kentucky in the upset.
Yeah, I'm going Georgia in this game. I think they're going to rebound. I don't think things are as bad as people are saying they are. Georgia, Kirby Smart, I think he's going to get them ready to play. Kentucky very much has a good defense, so Georgia will have to move the ball efficiently on offense. But I like Georgia at home. It's a home game for Georgia. I think they still have a lot to play for. Potentially could get into the playoff if everything goes right for them. So I like Georgia to rebound in this one. I'm going with the Bulldogs. All right, let's talk about another Big 12 matchup, Kansas State and Oklahoma State. Does Kansas State have any hope in this one?
Well, as we're talking before the game, I'm going to give Kansas State's going to have a chance in the game. As long as Bill Snyder's still their head coach, you don't count them out. They're going to be a very good, disciplined team. So I'm always going to give them a chance, but I don't think they're going to be able to hang with Oklahoma State's offense.
Yeah, I like Mason Rudolph. He had a really good game, really efficient game last week. They're at home. I like Oklahoma State in this one. All right, NC State and Wake Forest. Jonathan, this should be a decent matchup.
It should. Wake Forest is playing some team stuff, but I still like this NC State team. Even though they're banged up, they've been playing good ball even banged up. They should have beat Clemson banged up weeks ago. So I'm going to go with NC State.
Yeah, I'm going to NC State too, even though they're on the road. I do think this will be a closer game, but I like for NC State to come out on top.
Right.
Next we have a rivalry game. This one at UCLA and USC. UCLA has had kind of a down season, but Josh Rosen, he's back. He's had a decent game last week. Do you give them a chance against USC this week?
No, he had a good game. UCLA, they're a hot team. They can get hot on offense and compete with teams, but USC's just playing a different brand of football since they got that second loss. Ronald Jones is running the ball. I had him as my player of the week last week. Yeah. He's running the ball well, and as he runs, Darnold plays better because it takes pressure off him and have to make plays. So I'm going with USC.
I'm going USC too. They are very much in the Pac-12 championship hunt. They could finish their season strong, maybe get to a second straight Rose Bowl. So I'm going USC in this one. All right, let's move on to Air Force and Boise State. Jonathan, Air Force hasn't had the best of seasons.
Yeah, they've been struggling a bit. You normally don't want to see the Forces teams playing like the Air Force has. So it's definitely they don't have a shot. They've lost to the Army and Navy, so they're out of the Commander-in-Chief trophy. So that'll be Army Navy this year. So with that being said, they don't have much to play for. Boise State's got something to play for. They still have a chance in their conference. So I'm going to go with Boise State.
I'm going to with Boise State in this one. They're on the Smurf turf, blue field. So I like them at home against Air Force, having a down year. All right, let's talk about our marquee game this week, Jonathan. Big matchup in the Big Ten.
It is.
Wisconsin, they haven't really faced many tough tests. They beat a ranked Iowa team. This week, a ranked Michigan team comes into town. So who do you like in this one?
I'll go by fourth. Wisconsin's a very good team. They do all the things right, but they struggled a little more against Iowa than the score indicated. Iowa had the ball, and they were driving, about to take the lead, and then the quarterback had a muff snap that one of their defensive linemen picked up and ran back for a touchdown, and they were able to add another score pretty quick after that to kind of put the game away. But Iowa was in that game with them. So That being said, I just feel like the Wisconsin team, this all been challenged, like you said. I'm going to go with Michigan because they have actually been challenged. And, they win the next two games. We got a mess of the Big Ten. They host Ohio State the next week. So this Big Ten championship is far from settled.
Yeah, Michigan over the next few weeks has a great chance to ruin some teams' seasons.
Yeah.
You talk about Ohio State and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Because with a loss in this one for Wisconsin, their playoff hopes get dashed. I mean, they don't have the resume that other teams do.
If Michigan wins this game, do you give Wisconsin a chance against anyone but Michigan State in that Big Ten championship?
Well, Wisconsin fundamentally, I don't think they've showed some good signs this year, but I think it would be a really good game against any of the top four teams.
I'm saying they won't be good games, but I would pick the only team I would pick them over would be Michigan State. I think Ohio State, if Urban Meyer gets them ready for big games, you'll get the best out of Ohio State. I think Penn State's a better version of Wisconsin, to be honest. Yeah. They play a little better defense and they run the ball a lot better. That's probably the biggest difference would be Saquon Barkley. It's probably or Jonathan Taylor, which isn't that much, but the freshman versus senior running backs there. And then Michigan, if they beat them once, why wouldn't they beat them again, kind of thing.
Right.
So
getting back to this game, though, for Wisconsin, I think I like them at home. I like their offense. Michigan, they've really put up some good defensive performances. They've had their defense has carried them at times this year, especially early on in the season. Michigan on offense, I just do not trust them at all. Wisconsin, they have Jonathan Taylor, the freshman running back, who's had an excellent season there. Mm-hmm. And then Hornibrook, this is the second year, the lefty QB for Wisconsin. I like them at home. I think they'll beat Michigan. This one might be a little bit closer than the experts would think. But Wisconsin, this has got to be, they don't have many resume boosters, but this would probably be one.
Yeah.
For them.
And I hope it's not bad enough that they get mocked out by the time playoff gets actually picked.
Right. So Jonathan, you got Michigan. I got Wisconsin. We'll see how this one finishes on Saturday. All right. Well, that's all that we have for you guys this week. J&M Sports Talk. Be sure to look out for the after show. Going to have a good discussion there.
Yep.
And our playoff bracket, which the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we've been pretty on. Last week we took the top 5 at least.
We've been the information before you see the playoff bracket on Tuesday night. So that's our favorite segment of the week. So be sure to check that out. But we appreciate you guys watching the show, and we'll see you again next week.
Later,
Thank you guys.